Okay.
We're going?
Mm-hmm.
All right, awesome. Hello everyone, and welcome back to Summer Explorers Camp. For this video, we're going to be making a craft called Paper Blossoms. So once we're finished, it'll end up looking something like this. So really pretty, something you can put in a vase, decorate your living room or your bedroom with. This is actually, the blossoms on our paper blossoms are called plum blossoms. So before we get started with the craft, we're going to kind of talk about the history of the plum blossom, why it's used for decoration during the Chinese New Year, and you know what it symbolizes and things like that. And then we'll get into making the craft as usual. So starting with the history, plum blossom flowers traditionally represent new growth at the end of a long winter. So when flowers begin to bloom, it signifies life and good fortune. The reason for the symbols and why it works the way it does is because they typically bloom immediately following the end of winter. So like as soon as winter is over, as soon as spring starts, plum blossoms, they start to bloom. Another reason that it symbolizes life and good fortune is because flowers also can lead to the production of fruit, which is, like I said, is another symbol associated with fortune. So many people believe that because these flowers symbolize life and good fortune, that if there are no flowers during the Chinese New Year, then it will not be a good year. It won't be a promising year. It won't be a prosperous year. It'd be a bad time for everyone. So that fact makes it extremely important to have these flowers as a part of New Year's decorations. Traditionally, these flowers, the plum blossom flowers, represent perseverance, courage, and reliability. So all things that are, again, related to good fortune and good prosperous time in the imperial kingdoms. These blossoms can come in several different colors and different shades of pink and yellow, white and red. But the most common colors that are used during the Chinese New Year celebration are actually just pink and red. As you can probably guess. In Chinese art, these are typically associated with the entire winter season and not just the New Year. So it's more than just a symbol of the New Year, it's a symbol for the entire winter months and what winter represents to the Chinese and a time of regrowth and rebirth and moving into the Chinese New Year. So as we talked about before, when we were making our paper fans, there are some key differences between the plum blossoms, which bloom in China, and the Japanese cherry blossoms, which obviously bloom in Japan. So we'll talk about some key differences here just to kind of separate the two in your brain, to kind of keep them different. So plum blossoms typically bloom in late January, as I said, which is right at the end of the winter time. And cherry blossoms don't usually bloom until April. And then there's also some key differences in the shape. So plum blossom, the petals are round, and then cherry blossoms are more of like an oval shape. And then there's actually one similarity or a couple of different similarities, but they're kind of minor compared to the other ones, the other differences, I mean. So the similarities are that there are usually 5 petals, and they typically come in a variety of colors. So once again, plum blossoms and cherry blossoms are 2 different flowers. They come from 2 different countries, but for the purposes of this camp, we are talking about plum blossoms. So let's get started making our own paper plum blossoms. So we'll go ahead and get started. All right, so for this activity, what you will need is you'll need a stick from outside. It doesn't have to be very long, but you want it to have like a couple of bends in it, maybe a couple different places to stick the flowers once we start gluing them on. So you'll just want it to be like just a normal stick basically. You'll also need a sheet of pink tissue paper. You can make it pink or red, but traditionally we're working with pink, I'm sorry. So yeah, we're working with pink tissue paper. You'll also need a pair of scissors and some Elmer's school glue. I will tell you right now, I am not using Elmer's school glue, I am using hot glue. Do not use hot glue without your parents' supervision. It's very hot and I don't want you guys to burn yourselves or get hurt. So school glue works exactly the same. I'm just using hot glue because it's a little quicker, and it'll work a little easier for time purposes. So let's go ahead and get started making the craft. We are going to start by making some little squares out of our tissue paper. So what I do is I cut my piece of tissue paper in half. So this is a half of a sheet of regular tissue paper. You can see I've already cut out a square. But what I would do is just kind of cut up the line. So just cut straight up this way. And you can kind of experiment with the different sizes that you want your squares to look like, because some people might want bigger flowers, some people might want smaller flowers. And so usually I would just cut these into probably like just some good sized squares or rectangles. Like I said, it doesn't matter how you'd like them, just make sure that they're big enough to actually like work with and make into a decent sized flower. So you can see about how big I cut mine. But instead of cutting all of this up, I've actually already got some that I did beforehand. So we have right here just a little stack. It's probably about, I'd say probably about 9 or 10 squares, but like I said, you can do however many you want. So what we're gonna do next is actually show you how to make the flower. So there's a couple different ways, and like with the squares, you can experiment however you want to with making your flowers. I'll just show you a couple different ways that are easiest for me. So one way you can do it is to kind of, it's kind of crumpledy look. So what I do is I just always grab the center of the tissue paper and I just start like twisting it so that you kind of get this, this kind of flower shape. The part that you're pinching is gonna end up being the stem of the flower, which we're gonna glue to the stick here in a minute. But once you get it twisted just a little bit, I like to crumple it just a little bit to make it like just kind of cool looking and just give it a little depth. And then you can just kind of work with it, make it look the way you want to. But there's lots of different ways. So that's one type of flower that you can make. Another type is just basically the same thing, except you don't crumple it. So again, just grab the center and twist it just a little bit. And you just want to kind of leave the ends straight. So you'll end up with something looking more like this, and you can just kind of pull those up to make them look a little more natural. But yeah, so that's what an uncrumpled flower looks like. And like I keep saying, you can always experiment, show us different ways that you want to make your flowers, or you know, however you want to do it. This is your craft, you can do it the way that you want to do it. So there are a couple different ways to make flowers. So now we're going to show you how to attach them to your stick in a pretty easy way. So as I stated before, I'm using hot glue just because it's a little quicker. If you are using Elmer's school glue, it might take a little bit longer, so you'll want to make sure that your blossoms are completely dry before you try to move it or anything. But that's just something to be aware of if you're using regular school glue. Once again, disclaimer, do not use hot glue without your parents' help. So we'll just go ahead and get started. So you want to take your flowers, whichever ones you have, and you're just going to find wherever you want to stick it. So any place that there's like a natural like bend in your stick that has a little kind of hole is going to be a good place to stick it, just because it's going to have a place to rest. So what I'm going to do is just take my hot glue or my Elmer's school glue and just put a tiny dab right there, just enough to stick it to so that it will stay put. And you're just gonna hold it there until it's dried a little bit. So there is one that I've done, and I'll go ahead and glue this other one on here to show you. Like I said, anywhere where it has a little dip or a bend or even like a little V is a good place to stick it, because you'll have a good little resting place for it. And you can stick these any way that you would like. You just hold it on there. And you can kind of rearrange them once they're stuck on there. and crumple it up a little more or spread it out a little more, whichever you like. So yes, that is the basic premise behind making the paper blossoms. So you can put on as many or as few as you like. Just, you know, it's your craft, get creative with it. But eventually it will end up looking something like this. And then these just make great little decoration pieces that you can use to decorate your bedroom or your living room, like I said. But yeah, they're just a cool little craft that show off the plum blossom and different things that it's used for. So that's all I have for you guys in this video today. This is actually our final video of the day. So make sure that you tune in tomorrow for more different videos. And also, as usual, any crafts that you're doing, make sure that you're using our hashtag if you're going to share them on Facebook. It's hashtag MOTRR Summer Explorers 2020. And we love to see that kind of thing, and we'd love to put your name in a drawing to let you guys have a chance to win a $20 gift card from our museum store. So once again, tune in tomorrow to watch us talk about some more things about Imperial China and to finish off the week. So thank you guys for listening.